Hello, everyone, and welcome to another conversation with Jenny and I. Today, we're going to be talking about Mars entering Capricorn, and we're going to talk about its time there in Capricorn. First, before we get into that topic, I just want to kind of introduce ourselves a little bit for those of you who are new here. My name's Laurie, and you can find me at astrolore.org. You can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. Please like and share and comment on these videos. Now, Jenny, where can people find you?
They can find me at HiddenPathAstrology.com. I'm the owner operator of that, so come and see me there. And you can also follow me on all the social medias.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as far as our topic here, Mars entering Capricorn, it's an interesting thing to think about. Mars takes 2 years to go all the way around the zodiac, so it's a 2-year cycle. And as it enters Capricorn, let's just look at the dates. Mars is entering Capricorn on January 24th. And it will remain in Capricorn until March 6th. The last time Mars was in Capricorn was on February 16th, between February 16th, 2020 and March 30th, 2020. So that's kind of an interesting time frame to think about, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
What's the first thing that jumps to your mind about that?
Oh, the beginning of the pandemic. And actually, that is a great thing to think about Mars. It's a trigger, and it is the thing that joined all the other Capricorn planets, Pluto and Saturn, and the South Node is in there, and Jupiter. It triggered the beginning of that. So you can really tie those dates to that.
Yeah, there was such a pile up in Capricorn at that point. And yeah, Mars is often by transit the trigger to bigger patterns that are going on. So that is a really good example. But you can also, well, most of us, if we think back to that period of time, we know exactly what was going on in our lives because it was the beginning of the pandemic. But, you know, to realize that Mars is coming back for the first time since then to the area of your chart where it was at that time. And after we have a little conversation here, we will be talking individually, you know, so you can know exactly what area of your chart is being impacted by this and what area of your chart was being impacted at that time, determined by your rising sign. So first, let's talk about Mars. What do we know about Mars? Besides the fact that it's a trigger, what else does Mars bring to the table?
Mars, in the simplest of terms, it's action. It's where you're going to do something. You're going to take action in the outer world. It can be associated with this sort of more extrovert, expressive. In a lot of ways, it's considered male because it has the male symbol. And we could have lots of debate and conversation about the twists and turns of where we are with that right now in our culture. But nonetheless, it's going to be associated with the god of war and this very masculine sort of persona. What do you want to add to that?
Well, you know, I often say to people, without Mars, we'd never get out of bed. You know, Mars is that impetus to take action, to move forward. And it is such an important planet for that because we need a kick in the butt sometimes to get things done. And that's the job of Mars. So I think other than that, let's talk about Capricorn a little bit.
I did want to just add one more thing about Mars. I realized I forgot, which is just simply that Mars is the first planet that's on the other side of Earth from the sun. So it's outside of orbit. So that's part of the reason it has this name as being the kind of action thing, because it's the first thing that's outside of those orbits of all the inner planets. So I just wanted to add the astronomy piece. And you do get to see Mars quite a bit in the sky. It's got a reddish hue to it, which also ties in some of its significations. Mention those things.
Well, the other thing too about Mars that we should mention at this point is that Mars rules both Aries and Scorpio.
Mhm.
And that's an interesting thing to think about, the two signs that it rules. You know, one is Aries is a fire sign and Scorpio is a water sign. So, you know, you can think about how Mars manages itself in those two arenas, but that might be getting a little outside of what we need to talk about.
Well, actually, I think it does a good job of kind of highlighting some of its reputation, because certainly that whole God of War thing in the mythology, it's suiting up for suiting up for war. And in Aries, you see the battling ram, and you can picture those two rams, going at it, banging their heads together, and this is how they do their mating dance, which brings in the whole sex part of Mars.
Right.
And then Scorpio, you think about the scorpions, it's suited up for armor. It's armored up, it's got a skeleton, and it's got a stinging tail, and it's ready for some action.
But it's doing it in a very different way.
Very different way, much more coming out from under the rock and coming at you
Right.
instead of directly charging at you like the ram would.
Right.
I think in ancient astrology, what we're talking about are the diurnal or day expression with the Aries, and the more nocturnal and night, a little more hidden expression in Scorpio.
Yeah. Very good. Great. Okay. So now let's talk about Capricorn. What does Mars like being in Capricorn? Does it hate being in Capricorn? It likes it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Mars loves being Capricorn. It's considered exalted in that sign. So that means it's kind of like it's extra like puffed up in that sign. And it just really, really digs being there. And I think that's because Capricorn is just so darn efficient, and it wants to get things done.
Right.
And Mars is like, sweet, I can get things done in Capricorn. A lot of things done, have some power.
Yeah. Mars in Capricorn, it's interesting to think about Mars being there, just the Capricorn. I think there are a few things that you really need to think about with Capricorn, things like integrity and solitude and ambition. I guess that's where Mars in there can really support ambition.
Yeah, and I think I was thinking about some of the archetypes of Capricorn are one of them is the monk. So this idea of solitude, having to kind of be with solitude, and maybe that's part of the planning where you get clear about what you want to do. But Mars probably exists a little more in the like, let's check off the list, let's delegate, let's get things done, let's move things forward, and really kind of accelerate Capricorn, because Capricorn by itself, is a bit slow because it's Earth, and it's going to move a mountain, but it's going to do it one boulder at a time. But you put Mars in it, it's going to find ways to kind of speed that up. So I think that it's a very, so it's speeding things up, getting things done, things that Mars is happy doing.
Right. I don't know where this isn't something that I came up with. I'm not sure where I read it, but this idea of Mars in Capricorn as bringing with it a healthy sense of entitlement. For some reason, I thought that was real, because Capricorn is so much about, being the authority and having that kind of sense of itself and its abilities. And then Mars coming in and really pushing that forward. As long as the integrity is there, I guess that's where the healthy part comes in, right?
Yeah.
In Capricorn, you have to really earn something. And with Mars kind of directing the action, you can really earn what you put your attention and push forward.
Yeah.
Earn and deserve. There's something in that.
And you're going to have to work hard. I mean, that's always, I think, with Capricorn is a seriousness to it. I'm going to really put all of my effort to, behind the wheel here. I'm going to really do that. I think.
And yeah, because this is happening in whatever house in your chart Capricorn is in, this is a serious area of your life. It's not a flighty area. Wherever Capricorn is in your chart is an area where you have to work hard. for accomplishment. You have to be really diligent in integrity and in integrity in that area. So this really supports integrity and hard work in that area of your life. I think that's pretty simple. I think we can go right from there. Why don't we pull up the chart and look at any aspects that are being made, and then we can kind of go into the individual impact.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to add too that the integrity piece, that's where kind of the solitude comes in, because in order to be in integrity, it means that you need to know yourself. You need to know what you're doing. You need to understand what's behind that, the ethics behind that. And then, so that's, you got to take time, sit with it, be okay with being alone with it.
Yeah.
And then move forward with your action plan. And that's how you're in integrity, which is hard to say.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I think that's really important to highlight, is that the hard work is individual hard work. This is not an area of your life where you're doing with a community, working on a project together. This is an area where it is yours to do alone, and your integrity is what matters.
Yeah.
If it goes off the rails, you can't blame somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that it can delegate, and certainly Capricorn absolutely will, because this is the executive leadership portion of the chart, or one of the places you're going to look. So it can certainly delegate.
Yeah, you can delegate, but you're the one on the top. You're the one doing the delegating.
Yeah, you got it. So here's our chart, and this is taking place at 7:53 a.m. This is Eastern Standard Time. We're on the East Coast of the U.S., so adjust that time for wherever you're living. And you can see that Mars is at 00 of Capricorn in this chart, which I have to bring up. 00 of any cardinal sign is the Aries point. The Aries point is just a specific sensitive point in the chart where it's going to show up very publicly. So as soon as this Mars goes into Capricorn, it's this, in some way we're going to see it.
Yeah,
is what that suggests. Watch
the news. Something that holds that fast, direct action is likely to show up in the news. I want to mention something totally separate from Mars for a minute, because I can't help it looking at this chart. Well, no, never mind. I'm not going to say it, because Venus is still retrograde. I'm getting excited. I'm really getting excited for Venus to really become the morning star, but we're really not going to, it's not going to get enough space, I don't think, until a while down the road. It's still retrograde. So sorry I brought that up.
That's right.
We'll breeze right past that part of the conversation.
Yeah, well, I feel like we will be, because we're talking about Capricorn and we get to the more personal part. This is the place that's gotten kind of hammered recently. So we've talked a lot about where Capricorn is in your chart with our new moon and the full moon in Cancer and Venus retrograde. And now we're talking about Mars and Capricorn. So yes.
Yeah, it feels like we've been talking about Capricorn since 2020. Yeah, I mean, that's when all those planets gathered there. Ever since then, it feels like that has just been so much the focus.
Yeah.
The focus area. So the first thing that happens, the first thing that Mars does while it's in Capricorn is it forms a sextile to Jupiter on the 4th. A sextile just brings in an opportunity. So there's an opportunity for that effort that we're putting in to somehow expand into whatever household Pisces in your chart, if you're looking at it in a personal manner.
Yeah. And I mean, both these planets are in a nice position. Jupiter's in Pisces, rules, and Mars is in its sign of exaltation. So this is a really nice sextile that I'm very curious to see. Both planets are quite potent in this position. So
yeah, quite potent and quite happy. Yeah, they're very happy, and that might that'll be an interesting thing to watch how that plays out. Just that's on the 2nd of February, and then on the 8th we have another really interesting trine to Uranus, which offers a a trine aspect I think of as a gift. It's just energizing this intellectual excitement that Uranus is always engaged in, even in Taurus.
And like my hope for something like this, where you see Mars trining Uranus and Taurus, is that some kind of action gets taken that's in integrity for the environment. You know, that's some positive thing where there's a law put into place, or there's something positive that happens that helps support that. That's just one way to think about it, with Uranus being so tangible in Taurus. And I do think a lot about it's trying to wake us up to these issues of Taurus, which is essentially our security, which is Mother Earth, you know, which is the earth beneath us and the way that we have our food supplies and all these things. So I just wanted to kind of
that's a really good point. You know, I remember when Uranus first moved into Taurus, I don't know how many years ago now, but just the whole, Taurus it's the earth, it's our food supply. It's also women. You know, I always also think of it as Uranus moving into Taurus was a lot of the reflection with the Me Too movement and all of that. So this, Mars doing this back to back, the sextile to Jupiter and the trine to Pluto, that's a nice little combination. It's a nice little combination, and something really good could come out of that. So keep an eye on that as well. And then on the 16th, we come to Mars conjuncting with Venus.
Yeah. And by then, Venus will no longer be retrograde.
Yay!
So actually, Venus is going to turn direct here, I think on the 28th, so 4 days after this chart. And then Mars is going to have to catch up to it. And it does it right after Valentine's Day, February 16th. And I only bring that up because we can think of Mars as being sort of the more masculine component, Venus as being the more feminine. It's interesting to think about those things coming together right around that sort of, I don't know. I feel like Valentine's Day is kind of a silly holiday in a way, but nonetheless, it's kind of fun to think about that being highlighted, these two things coming together.
Yeah, it is. Mars and Venus coming together, you know, I think of, you know, Mars kind of energizes Venus, Venus kind of softens Mars. But because Mars is in its exaltation, they're in Capricorn, Mars has the upper hand. So it's more about Mars energizing Venus. So it's like there's an energizing of the feminine in a way. And that's kind of nice. I like that. I'm thinking about that.
So,
okay. So the next aspect that happens is a simple little sextile to Neptune, which will be happening. Oh, there's Neptune, which will be happening on the 23rd.
Yes.
So, whoops, not red. Red is not what we're looking for. We're looking for blue. The what I always use for a little color scheme, the blue lines I use for sextiles and trines, the opportunities and the gifts and possibilities, and then I use the red lines for the challenging squares and oppositions. So this brings in some energy to our imagination, dreaminess.
Different states of consciousness. Maybe confusion. This might stymie Mars a little bit, though it is a sextile. So it's a little bit like, this is your mission should you choose to accept it. I mean, you don't have, you can ignore sextiles to a degree. This presents an opportunity if you want it. So thinking about, I don't know, I think about like taking action on like that art project you wanted to do, that imaginative thing, or you wanted to write some poetry, or on a personal level. I think that like that, on the bigger level, I think about opportunities to just think about larger principles of kindness and forgiveness and compassion, all these things, trying to soften the harsh edges of Mars.
Right. Very good. Very good. Poetry. Yeah. On an individual level, utilize that day. Take a long hot bath and write some poetry, make some music, work on an art project. The other thing, whenever I see Mars and Neptune coming together, I think of this idea of just, you can kind of, there's a chameleon quality to it. And yeah, you can use that in many ways, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Neptune's often that thing that's other than it seems, right? So it can play out in different ways. And this whole thing with astrology is it's not necessarily going to be good or bad. It just has all these different potentials it can play out to be.
Right.
So it's
and because it's a sextile, it's going to lean toward the more positive manifestation and the one that you have a choice. Like you said, sextiles, we can ignore them. Trines, we can't really ignore. They're going to happen. They're gifts. They're not opportunities. Okay. Yeah. So now I'm going to make all those lines go away because the next one is really the one that we need to pay attention to. And that is on March 3rd, Mars conjuncts Pluto.
Yeah, that's intense.
That's a tough one. That's an intense one. That's a tough one. Keep an eye on that. You know, whenever there's a conjunction between two planets, that's the most potent of the aspects. It is the beginning of a cycle. You can think of this as the beginning of a 2-year cycle of energizing power or energizing empowerment or destruction. You know, Pluto, like all the planets, like, you know, astrology is a symbolic language. There's layers and layers of meaning under all of these symbols. And Pluto is really about power, empowerment, destruction. You know, I feel like Pluto's job is to destroy what is in the way of necessary transformation. Mars's job often is to trigger something. So this is power being triggered.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times too, Pluto is describing things that are not necessarily in your view. They're things that may be buried. That's a very typical thing. So sometimes with Pluto, there's a need, or with Mars, Pluto, you're going to see something being excavated and brought up from the depths that you maybe didn't expect, or there's that sort of thing to it, or something that was previously concealed and like the cover blows off and now you're like, oh, I didn't see that before, you know. And those things can be a shocker. Mars and Pluto, I mean, that is a powerful contact. They'll do bear in mind with mundane astrology, this is something we see every couple of years. We're going to see this thing, so it's not like something you're not seeing for decades and suddenly here it is. This is something that's happening every 2 years. And I was curious, I don't have this at my fingertips, but I was wondering if the next time they meet, will Pluto be in Aquarius? And I'm not sure. I have to look it up, but
probably. What I'm curious about, and what I thought you were going to say is, I wonder what the exact date was when Mars conjuncted Pluto in 2020.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it was back in that January, February timeframe.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. We should put that in the show notes if we think to do that.
Also, I want to say, like, I mean, Laurie, your stuff with the cycles is really great. Like just mentioning like how this, okay, here's the seed state. And then in a few months, in about half a year or so, Mars will then square that Pluto, and you'll kind of get to check the progress of whatever began at this date on March 3rd. So so just keep your eyes open for things in the media, like potency, like things, the cover being blown off, like something surprising, or some kind of power moves, action being taken. Those kind of fun things.
Those kind of fun things. We all, So is there anything else you want to talk about before we jump into the individual comments?
The only thing we can add that you mentioned before was just letting folks know that Mars is going to retrograde in October, and it does retrograde every 2 years. It actually, the last time it retrograded was in 2020, and that was in Mars, and there was a lot of Mars is in Aries, and there's a lot of stuff along with that. But anyway, this year it will be in Gemini, and I'm sure we'll make a video about it. So just FYI.
Yeah, in October, it'll go retrograde. That'll be an interesting one. Okay, so for now, if you want to close that image down, we can just talk about where this is happening in your life and just a little snippet about that. So if you have Aries ascendant, Aries rising, then this is happening in your 10th house. That's a simple one. Get to work at work.
Yeah.
Get to work at work. There's a lot of energy for accomplishment in your career or somehow in your public life. We talk about the 10th house as career. It's also your reputation. Not everyone has a career, but everyone has an outward reputation.
Yeah.
Even if you're a recluse, there's people outside your door talking about you. You've got some sort of a reputation or a career, and that is the area that's really being highlighted here. And so thinking about that as, okay, we're going into a period of time where you've got a lot of work to do. Make sure integrity is really primary to your work. And keep in mind that March 6th date, when some big transformation or hidden issue may come to light or be revealed, or
Yeah. Oh, you mean the conjunction on March 3rd? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, I just wanted to
March
just
6th.
Well,
Isn't
March
it?
6th. No, it's March 3rd, and then March 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're on, but
Yeah.
that's 3 days later, Mars goes into Aquarius. So
yes. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's all good. So, but you have to, it's basically, we're talking about the month of February here, where you really have this time to work hard.
Right. Yeah. The Mars will exit Capricorn on March 6th. So March 3rd is when the Mars Pluto thing happens. Okay. So next on our list is Taurus. If you've got Taurus rising, this Mars in Capricorn is happening in your 9th house. What is it you're going to get to work on in the 9th house?
Serious effort to broaden your worldview.
Yeah.
In simple terms, it's things about your philosophy, perhaps your system of ethics, just simply taking them out of the viewpoints. It might be a time of travel. It's a little questionable with where we're at with the pandemic, but it could be a time of travel for sure.
Or, it may be a time that you decide you want to go back to school. Take action on that. That 9th house is about travel. It's about education. It's about our broader worldview. Yeah, it's where we grow and expand our understanding and awareness of the world. So that's where you want to take action. And that's where you want to make sure you're in high integrity. Okay. Yeah. So if you have Gemini rising, this is happening in your 8th house. What are we going to take action on here?
The 8th house is tricky because this, and Mars entering that 8th house means that you might just come up right up against other people's value systems, and you might find yourself maybe a little bit having to work through it. And the best thing you can do for yourself is have just a clear sense of your boundaries, like where do you end and the other person begins. And so somebody throwing some stuff at you and maybe it's making you mad, just remember some of it's just their stuff. Yeah. So you can just simply go, no, I'm going to find a way through this. And one of the things you can do is create a very simple grounding ritual that just reminds you of this. Like, okay, I'm just going to get grounded here and carry on.
Taking action on your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And rituals are always such a good way to work with that. Okay, so if you've got Cancer rising, it's happening in your 7th house. Take action on your personal relationships in some way. Is it time to file for a divorce? Is it time to go get a marriage license or make a best friend, or just taking some sort of action, being really, having that energy to move forward somehow in relationship. Again, wherever you've got Capricorn is a serious area. It's a serious area of your life. So we're taking serious action here.
Yeah, that's right. Time to prioritize integrity and all of your one-on-one relationships.
Right.
So,
Right.
yep.
Yeah, whatever house this is falling in, you really want to look, especially given that Mars and Pluto conjunct here at the beginning of March. Make sure your integrity level, wherever this is falling, is really clear,
Yeah.
because that's what can come back to bite you. If
Yeah.
you're out of integrity in your relationship, since we're talking about this with Cancer rising, if you're out of integrity in your relationship, it's going to come back and bite you.
And this is when Pluto becomes a landmine. So watch
Right.
out.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. So next on our list is Leo rising. If you've got Leo rising, this is happening in your 6th house. You're going to want to take actions on really developing your day-to-day routines that support your health.
Yeah.
Rituals that support you.
Yeah, this is when you need to take responsibility for the routines that you need to keep you healthy. So maybe it's not so fun to go down and ride your spin bike or whatever your thing is, but you need to do it in terms of keeping, I'm projecting, I got one in my basement, but you need to do that to keep yourself healthy. It's not just for fun or whatever. It's absolutely important for your health. So.
Right. Yes. Make sure your integrity is high there and that you're paying attention. Yeah, wherever Capricorn is, it's like face reality, be accountable, take responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you have Virgo rising, this is happening in your 5th house of creativity. And, the 5th house really is where we give of ourselves. It's creativity, it's love affairs, children, all those things, but really it's where we give of ourselves most freely.
Mm-hmm.
With Capricorn in that house, it's not necessarily an easy place. We might have challenges in that area, but at this point in time, with Mars moving through there, we've got a lot of energy to push forward on creative projects, to do whatever we need to do as far as being in integrity with where we give love to others.
Yeah. I think one way you can think about this is just simply scheduling time to work on your creative projects. It's really easy to not do it, but to schedule the time, and then it makes it a lot easier to follow through. To take a risk, do something a little bolder than you might have thought. Do something you really want to do that's important to you.
Interesting. Okay, so if you've got Libra rising, this is happening in your 4th house. 4th house is your home. It's your family. It's so it's time to take action with high integrity. Take action on your home or family. This might mean it's time to put your house on the market, or to go visit a realtor and look at a new home, or maybe it has more to do with the family within those walls than the actual walls themselves. But make sure that within the context of your family, your home, that you are being upright and in integrity. And watch that date at the beginning of March, that Pluto.
Yeah, this is definitely having to accept some responsibility for, if you're bringing in kind of unresolved stuff into your current relationships, like that you need to resolve, that might be something that could show up, because the 4th house is a very private place. It refers to family, but it also can be the things that, you just need to do a little bit of inner work with that. Even though Mars is like, let's charge through, there might be a little bit of like, make sure, as you said, that you're in integrity.
Yeah, that 4th house is so interesting. I think sometimes it's, I think of it as home and family, but it's like so much deeper than that. Mm-hmm. It feels to me like it encompasses, our whole ancestral line. Yeah. It's like taking responsibility for the whole line of your ancestry. Maybe, maybe there's some action that needs to be taken on some healing, some old ancestral pattern. There could be issues around that it's really time to face and take responsibility for.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. So if you have, where are we at now? If you have Scorpio rising, This is happening in your third house. Third house is about your communication.
Mhm. Yeah.
What do you need to say that you haven't said?
Mm.
What do you need to write or speak about? What's been holding your voice back that
Mhm.
you now are provided with this opportunity with Mars to really take action and say what needs to be said, express what needs to be said,
Mhm.
with high integrity.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, do your best for it to be skillful communication, which isn't going to be the easiest with Mars because you're going to want to just spit it out. So that'll be the tricky part, I think, with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an important one to work with. I love things moving through the third house. Different planets moving through the third house, bringing their energy there. I think it's just so important when we think about how important it is, the way that we use our voice. And with Capricorn in that area, your voice is so important,
Mhm.
and yet not an easy area.
Yeah.
It's not easy to say those hard things.
Mm-mm.
But Mars at this point is really pushing you forward.
Yeah. Yep. Especially when you have Scorpio rising too, it suggests that you have something pretty deep to say, something fairly profound that impacts people, that may instigate change. So I've always thought that's interesting with Scorpio rising, how there's this real seriousness about the communication and how you listen
Right.
and take in information too.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Hope that goes well.
Yeah. Say what you need to say. Okay. So, yeah. Oh, there was something else. Okay. Anyway, moving on. The next one is Sagittarius rising. If you've got Sagittarius rising, Mars is moving into Capricorn, is moving into your second house. And this is going to really be asking you to take some action on how you use your resources.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in integrity with your resources?
Mm-hmm.
How do you spend money? And how is your self-esteem, your self-worth built by how you use your resources?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is a time to check in with your most deeply held values, which is also part of the whole resource picture. So you're gonna want to check in those, make sure that you're, just having some clarity and understanding. Which, yeah, the amount of activity that's been in Capricorn too, there's been a lot of work here. So use that work, check in, make sure you know where you're at.
Yeah, this would be a perfect time for you, for all of us to some extent, but for you particularly, get your taxes done.
Yeah.
Mars is giving you that energy. Make sure, with Capricorn in that house in general, how you use money, how you deal with those things is so important, your level of integrity with them. So get your taxes done, do it right. Okay. Next is, if you have Capricorn rising, it's happening in your first house. This is really personal.
Mm-hmm.
This is really personal. This is really about taking action on how people see you, how you express your personality in the world as an authority. If you've got Capricorn rising, you're kind of holding that space of the authority in the world.
Yeah, you sure are. So it kind of brings the integrity piece to a whole new level when this is if you're Capricorn rising, as you said, you're going to be doing Capricorn things in the world as your most poignant direction that your life is heading in.
Yeah.
So extra important that you take the time in solitude, you take the time, because this also is going to impact your partnerships because it's across from the seventh house. So make sure you're taking the time of solitude that you need in order to show up and be your best self and take appropriate action.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, very good. Okay, so now if you have Aquarius rising, this is falling in your 12th house. Taking action on understanding your own inner workings. If you might want to get a therapist or do some work on understanding what is kind of internally hidden, your unconscious. Dig around there a little bit. This is really going to give you a lot of energy to explore your inner hidden resources.
Yeah, this is Capricorn in the 12th house. Like this is like a reckoning with isolation, with understanding, you know, isolation and solitude. As we've already mentioned solitude a lot because it's a Capricorn word. Well, the 12th house also refers to isolation. So that might mean, you know, hey, I got to go do this retreat because I need to isolate. It can also refer to people, you know, in prison or being stymied some other way by the powers that be. So there's a little bit of that aspect to it too. And there's a lot of connection to, as we talk about a lot, suffering and having to just kind of recognize that we all suffer in this life, but it does have a purpose. And we all do it. So we all can recognize that we do it and have some connection that way too. So
yeah. The whole issue of suffering is so interesting, just in the necessity to suffer in order to understand compassion and to really understand each other. Yeah, we all do it. We all suffer. And once we understand that and can recognize it in each other, we can really develop deep, deep levels of compassion. So that's what you're working on if you've got Aquarius rising.
yeah.
Now, if you have Pisces rising, this is happening in your 11th house, and it's time to take action on building or creating or deepening a connection with some sort of community, some way of receiving back from the community. Yeah, the community area where you receive love from others is a serious area in your life.
Yeah, I think the community area, it to some degree, it could tie into something like activism, because a community is something, it isn't necessarily your friends. They can be your friends, but it's people that you're united by a common cause.
Right.
And so this is where you need to be in integrity with that group, and that you're working together behind a cause. And each of you props up the other by being, and supports the other by being part of that community.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so make sure that the community you're involved with, that you really are connected there.
Yeah.
And if you're not, if you realize that you're in a community and you're out of integrity with that community, it's time to take action on that. Mars is here to allow you to move on.
Yeah.
Whatever area this is happening in really gives you permission to move on and change it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all 12 signs. And I hope you recognized yourself there somewhere for all of you. Anything else, Jenny, before we close up?
No, I think we covered a really nice thing on Mars. Post any comments or questions, or other things you want to see. If you want to see other videos and things, I imagine we'll keep doing some of these planets going into new signs. But yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you, Jenny. This was fun to talk with you and do this again.
Thanks, Laurie.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.